Welcome back. It's been a minute. Or maybe it's been 7 months. If you've been following along with our newsletter, link in description, you already have a sense of what's been happening. But if not, get ready for a whole roller coaster of news, both bad and good. First off, why did the podcast disappear so suddenly? This is the tough news, because right after the holidays, Zeta Schneider, who you might know as the co-founder of the False Creek Friends Society, fell ill with a rare type of lymphoma. There have been some serious ups and downs, but I'm relieved to report he's still with us in mind and spirit and resting as comfortably as possible at home with his family. So, hi Zeta, we love you, and we are so grateful for the seed you planted in all of our hearts. As you can imagine, things were pretty hectic in January and February when Zeta was suddenly MIA. Over the course of making this podcast, he had not only been my employer, but also my collaborator, mentor, and friend. And quite by accident, I started not just to work on producing this show, but on this project in False Creek as a whole, because I became convinced that this water body is on the cusp of something truly remarkable. But more on that later. When Zeta was unable to continue his work, I realized that I'd effectively become his understudy. Behind the scenes of this podcast, I had met all of our closest advisors and community members and was as up to date on Zeta's ideas as anybody. So, after some conversations with the board of directors, I stepped into a new role, now officially the executive manager of the False Creek Friends Society. Quite a weird graduation from podcaster, I have to say. On that note, I should mention that we actually have a couple episodes already recorded, but which I haven't had time to edit since I've had my hands full with everything else. But hopefully, we'll find some way to get them out on the podcast feed before too long. So now, on to the good news. Actually, it's nothing short of amazing. Because over the past few months, we have been flying, ramping up with new projects, and some pretty incredible progress on the political side. And we had a whole damn festival for Ocean Week Canada. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. I should mention that all of this momentum is thanks to Zeta's tireless work over the years. It's just now coming to fruition. So really briefly on our new projects, False Creek Friends Society has 4 important community science initiatives ongoing, 3 new, 1 from previous years. First up, returning for another year, our Light Trapper survey, part of the Hakai Institute's Sentinels of Change project, which looks at the number of Dungeness crab larvae as an indicator species for the health of the fishery as a whole. And now, we also have, in collaboration with Metro Vancouver, the City of Vancouver, and Rain Coast Conservation Foundation, a study of the water quality of False Creek. This project will improve our understanding of the current conditions in False Creek and evaluate the influence of the combined sewer and stormwater system on its water quality, thus guiding our collective effort for its improvement. This project is basically assessing water samples directly from False Creek, as well as from the sewer outfalls that discharge into it at different times of the year. Thirdly, with Langara College and Atelier Aloera, we're studying the biodiversity of False Creek and how it changes over space and time through the use of eDNA, or environmental DNA. This really makes me feel like we're living in the future, because just by sampling a little bit of water, we can learn about all the creatures that are living in False Creek. What's more, we'll be communicating our findings through all sorts of artistic public engagements. Really cool stuff. Finally, in partnership with Georgia Strait Alliance and with support from the City of Vancouver's Community Climate Action Grant and SFU's Community Engaged Research Initiative, we are building a brand new map of False Creek. Not only is this map going to consolidate all sorts of existing data sets from different institutional silos, we're going to be layering that with stories gathered directly from False Creek's many communities. I really think this new map is going to become a foundational knowledge resource, helping us all to deepen our relationship and our understanding of False Creek. To learn more about each of these projects, you can find links in the description. And because I'm such a tease, I just I want you to know that there's other really cool projects in development. I just can't tell you about them yet. But the best way to stay up to date is on our newsletter. That's falsecreekfriends.org/newsletter. Okay, now onto the news from the political front. You might remember our last episode on this podcast feed, episode 7 with Stephen Petkow and Shelley Luce. And if not, check it out. It's a really good one. In it, the discussion turns to the lack of clear governance really being the crux of the issue here in False Creek. The problem being not that there's a lack of regulators, quite the opposite. There are way too many, and they overlap and contradict and don't talk to each other. Counts vary. More than 20 agencies, depending on how you slice it, but they include all levels of government: federal, provincial, municipal, and more. False Creek, I think, really could be a flagship story of urban marine renewal. Blue spaces like these waterways that we can access and relate to, these spaces are really special because they offer us a new way to see how much our human interests align with the interests of everything and everyone else. If the water was safely swimmable here, what would that mean for the shops and businesses? Just this spring, we had a single gray whale grazing for a couple of days just outside the Burrard Street Bridge. With the kind of news that generated, all the buzz, what if that was a regular occurrence? What would that mean for tourism? And in terms of what it would do for our public mental and physical health, to have this refuge right at the center of the city be all the more vital, all the more cared for, all the more alive. I mean, I don't think the benefits can be overstated. This place is already the place where so much of Vancouver comes to exercise and relax and find peace. And yet, it stinks. Literally, you know what I mean, down in the East Basin there. That's not the smell of sewage, by the way. It's actually anaerobic bacteria in the intertidal sediment, a particularly unhealthy intertidal sediment. What if it smelled like the seashore? Is that so hard to imagine? I don't know. I think it's pretty obvious that it could be so much better than it is. Better in ways that would benefit every human being in Vancouver and a lot of non-human beings too. So the question becomes, why isn't it? How did it come to be so broken and mismanaged? I've come to recognize it, in the words of Douglas Adams, as a space cloaked in a somebody else's problem field. With so many government agencies nominally involved, but without any clarity or intercoordination, it's convenient and arguably necessary for each one of them to pass the buck. No one agency speaks on behalf of False Creek's interests as a whole. So is it intractable? Definitely not. This jurisdictional roadblock isn't going to get solved overnight, but that's not to say that it's not going to get solved at all. A few months before Zeta fell ill, he actually hit upon a really interesting legal pathway that may be the sword that cuts through this Gordian knot. I'm going to refrain from going into detail, but you should know that it's the seabed that holds the key. For the curious and the wonks, I wrote a 4-page summary of this whole pathway to coordinated stewardship in False Creek, and you guessed it, there's a link in the description. That document was developed with Zeta's legal research and with input from as many people in the community of False Creek as I could manage to speak to, and so far at least, no one has thrown any big red flags on it, so that's cool. Here's where the story kind of goes supersonic. In the process of shopping that draft document around for feedback, I bumped into a city councillor, Sean Orr. I asked him to take a look at it, and not only did he take a look at it, he turned it into an official gosh dang motion for Vancouver City Council. Less than 8 weeks later, and the motion goes for a vote. It has the official support of Musqueam Nation, West Coast Environmental Law, 15 people signed up to speak, plus an untold number of written comments. And it passes. Unanimously. This was just last week, and to be honest, it still feels quite surreal. I also think it's pretty funny that I managed to fall kind of backwards into a job which is functionally environmental lobbyist. And if you know me from my other podcast, Future Ecologies, you might agree. Anyhow, what does this motion do, and what doesn't it do? Unsurprisingly, a jurisdictional like this one is difficult for any one party to solve unilaterally. So this is really just a first step in a long process of consultation and negotiation. But it's still a really big deal. Basically, what we have here is an official signal that the City of Vancouver is committed to working with the federal, provincial, and First Nations governments in order to create a coordinated stewardship model in False Creek. And honestly, that's huge. I'd like to believe that all those other layers of government can see this not only as an opportunity for a political win, but as a way to make their own jobs a lot less complicated, deferring the management of False Creek, which has been kind of a problem for everybody, onto an office that can focus on it 100%. It's my hope that not only will this become a new model of bureaucratic efficiency, but also transparency and accountability to community values. I think this new agency could go far beyond just the concerns of vessel management. It could be the coordinator of all sorts of practical ecological enhancement projects, of cultural amenities, educational opportunities, and much more. In a word, it's about placemaking. So what we have with this motion is an important first step. It's a promise that the city is ready to come to the table, and a commitment that city staff will produce their own report on the situation and the opportunities. So thank you, and congratulations to everyone who helped push this along. I really think we're going to look back on this as a watershed moment. So at this point, you might be wondering, what about making False Creek a national urban marine park? Isn't that the whole goal of the False Creek Friends Society? To that, I say, it used to be, but it isn't anymore. Zeta founded FCFS with a park in mind, but really that was just because it seemed like an easy way to communicate a vision. Many people have a concept of a park as a place where nature is celebrated and where health and recreation are the priorities. It seemed like a pretty solid pitch at the time. But the word park also has a dark side. Parks have been spaces of eviction of ways of life, and more to the point, eviction of human beings. The whole idea of a park is pretty much grounded in the notion that protecting nature means keeping people out. An alternative perspective is that people thrive in relationship with nature, and nature thrives in return. Rather than putting up fences, we can live in joyous reciprocity with the natural systems to which we belong. We can get our hands dirty and build and nurture. We can be good stewards of this place. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The point is that what we want is for False Creek to be better, to be healthier, to be more vibrant and alive, and to ensure equitable access to its many gifts. Maybe we could get there by making False Creek a marine park, or maybe we could call it something else, an environmental person, an IPCA, an MPA, or any number of other frameworks, some of which have been discussed in detail on this podcast. But in my opinion, starting by naming a framework is kind of the wrong end forward, because we inevitably end up in the weeds of implementation. Instead of just signing on to the project, people reasonably ask, what about this detail? Or what about that detail? I'm sure we'll get there eventually, but the real first step is to build a coalition. How do we do that? I think it's by realizing how much we all really just want the same things, the same characteristics for False Creek. We want to safely swim and play and someday maybe even fish. We want to be able to explore its shores and teach our children and build our relationship with the Salish Sea that we are all so privileged to live beside. So instead of saying what we want is a park, I think what we want is a movement. I've taken to calling it a seagrass roots movement, but I think it's a joyous, participatory groundswell for the kind of urban environment that we all deserve. I think False Creek is the clearest place for Vancouver to focus that energy because it's iconic, but it's beleaguered. It's small enough for change to be achievable, but it's big enough for that change to be impactful. Whatever we model here will surely make waves. Where those ripples carry, who can say? Okay, so that's the big update. There's lots more to come, but to be perfectly honest, producing this podcast is no longer my highest priority. As I mentioned, the best way to keep up to date is our newsletter at falsecreekfriends.org/newsletter. And if you're particularly motivated to volunteer, please get in touch. There's a contact form on our website where you can let us know what skills you have to contribute or what projects speak to you. This is a big canoe, and it's going to take a lot of paddles. So, peace.